Hey everybody, welcome to episode 16 of the Sherveen Show, where we connect the dots between startups, business, society, and technology. Today, that's going to mean stuff around AI, social media, a little bit of politics even, creator economy. Let's dive right into it. All right, the first bit of big news is coming out of OpenAI with the release of Operator, their research preview of one of their first agents. And they've specifically said this is actually a particular agent for browser automation, and they will have other labels and names for their other agents. So excited to see that this year. But Operator is their browser agent. Let me get into what it is, why it matters, broadly speaking, and we'll get into a little bit of a preview. The what it is really important here. A lot of folks have been, especially startup founders, saying, hey, we're releasing an agent for a CRM or for a shopping workflow. But in a lot of cases, this is actually them just stringing together multiple AI calls in some sort of workflow and calling that an agent. Whereas real agentic behavior is when an AI model, a large language model in particular, in what we were talking about over the past couple of years, is kind of planning its own steps, taking self-directed action with potential user interruption, and getting to a goal that requires it to follow the use of those multiple steps, maybe even the use of third-party tools, or again, even a browser. And so Operator is an example of a true agent. Again, it's not fully autonomous for a variety of safety reasons, functional reasons, and testing reasons. And there are other products out in the market that are agentic, but I just want to point that out because a lot of things that people claim are agents really aren't. And when we get to the preview, you'll see why it's a big difference. Now, this Operator is relatively limited. It's still interesting. It doesn't do a lot right now because of the restrictions OpenAI has put in place. So the way that it works, and again, we'll see this in a second, when you make a request to Operator, what it does is it opens a browser that you can actually see in OpenAI's backend that, again, you can kind of visualize in the ChatGPT screen. And the agent is taking browser actions. The really awesome part of this, compared to other integrated tools or other agent-like systems, is what OpenAI has built here is a chat system where the other side, the AI side, is taking undirected actions in a browser rather than requiring, let's say, an integration with an Uber Eats or with a Kayak or with Gmail. And so because a browser is our natural input for a lot of things we do and a lot of the tools that we use, essentially what this means is as they release some of the safety and testing limitations they have on top of Operator, it'll be able to do anything we do inside of a browser. And so, I really compare this moment. Some people are going to find this Operator research preview quite limited, but this is an imagination agitating moment. These are products, these early releases that OpenAI wants us to play with. They want to see how users use it. They want to, again, get safety and privacy in the right place. But even the Rabbit R1 and the Humane AI Pin, people might or might not remember those devices that were released last year in the AI space. They're not necessarily doing well as companies, but the reason I bring them up is when you're disappointed with the early experience of any of these brand new products, especially with how fast AI is progressing, remember, these are day zero. And in day zero products, we might not find them useful, but they should agitate our imagination as to what the future could look like. With that in mind, let's go to a quick preview of what the Operator agent actually can do. So I have here the interface for ChatGPT's Operator pulled up. It looks kind of like ChatGPT. It's a slightly different page inside their interface. And I have here a request. I'll read out the request and describe what it means before I press enter, especially for those of you listening and not on YouTube. The request is, quote, look up the Fangraphs war for Aaron Judge and compare it to Alex Rodriguez in the peak of their careers. So Fangraphs war, I'll shortcut that for those of you who aren't into baseball or advanced stats, is just a way to measure baseball players. Fangraphs is a particular website. And I'm saying, hey, compare the peak war for two particular players, Aaron Judge and Alex Rodriguez. And if you make this request to ChatGPT normally, it's going to either search the web in a non-browser way or through an integration or use its already pre-trained data to answer the question. But what you're going to see, especially if you're watching on YouTube, is we're going to see Operator actually execute on this inside of a browser just like we would. The reason I think this request is interesting and notable, other people are trying to buy airline tickets and other things with Operator, and that's possible, and you can go check that out for other people's examples. But I want you to see how it browses the website, again, if you're watching on YouTube, and this should agitate your imagination as to where this is going to go over time. All right, we've pressed enter here, and now we have the Operator browser. I'm going to expand it so that it's on the right, and we have the chat on the left. At any point while I'm hovering over what it's doing in the browser, you can see I have a take control button to help it if it gets stuck. But it's already using Bing to get to Aaron Judge's page on Fangraphs, and we're going to see it take action here. I might speed this up when we're posting this on YouTube and save my commentary for later. But as it's going, I'll point out a few things. On the left here, I can expand and see all the steps it thinks that it's taking. So it's saying we're going to search for fan graphs and for Aaron Judge's war stat. Then it's saying it's going to click on certain links. And we can see that on the right. Again, there's a browser in the back end here that ChatGPT is using to actually execute on this request. It's actually on the page. And we'll see it's going to now search for Alex Rodriguez's stats. And again, I might speed up portions of this when we post online, but it's actually using live data on the page like we would. And again, this is unlike the search stuff that you've seen. Why is it unlike the search stuff you've seen? Well, with search, remember, when it's pulling up a web page, it's usually pulling up static web pages. It's not using complicated apps or interfaces. Whereas with fan graphs, there's an entire table here that it's scanning. It's using the left side of the fan graphs interface to navigate to different pages. If we were using a CRM, it would be able to use the buttons inside of our CRM to get to subpages to look up specific contact information. And so we already have our answer here as to Aaron Judge's highest war according to fan graphs and Alex Rodriguez's war according to fan graphs. But the point is, it scrolled and clicked around and we could see it. We could interrupt it if we needed to. And if you imagine the tools that you use on a day-to-day basis for work or personal productivity, then this is probably going to agitate your imagination as to why Operator is going to be so cool and so important as a model for agents moving forward. It's currently only available to folks on the $200 a month pro subscription. So if you're looking to play with it, you'll have to have that in tow. But again, it's early. Don't feel like you're really being left out at this point unless you're someone who uses AI on a 20 out of 24 hour basis. You'll be okay. Okay, on to our next topic. We're going to get a little bit political here, warning, but tech and politics are merging very quickly. So that's going to be more common than maybe we expected heading into 2025. Let's get into the ever frustrating realm of tech and politics fusing together. And I want to make a comment here about how to track incentives and find out when people are being misleading, because the fact that a lot of venture capitalists and tech business folk are in our current admin is going to mean we're going to see a lot of this probably over the next 4 years, for better or worse, incentives mixing with politics. In the example here, there's someone named Gavin Baker, a crossover fund manager, who tweeted the other day after the Stargate announcement, where a combination of Trump, Sam Altman, SoftBank, and Oracle made an announcement about investment in a new compute project. Gavin tweeted about whether or not the $500 billion was already secured, whether it was a reasonable number, the dynamics behind the number, the fact that OpenAI is burning a lot of cash. It's a reasonable tweet in isolation until a venture capitalist who is a shareholder in OpenAI pointed out that this fund manager is involved in a lawsuit against OpenAI, probably related to some sort of shareholder agreement or maybe even Elon's lawsuit. And that really frustrated me. And I think we're going to see a lot of this over the next few years. To spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt about OpenAI and this project, when you are personally invested in the potential outcome here, I think you need to disclose it, just like you would if this were an ad. And Gavin tweets a whole lot about tech, politics, and business. The idea that he's going to say all of these things about this particular initiative, which, by the way, Trump is announcing many private public market initiatives. Is he going to tweet about all of them? Is he going to be skeptical about all of the cash involved in all of these deals where the cash is coming over 10 years or 5 years or from different sources? The answer is no. And there's a whole engagement that me, Gavin, and Jeff here, the VC, had where, again, Gavin kind of skirted the responsibility he has here to disclose and be honest about his incentives. And I just, again, want you to pay particular attention to this in the age of this particular admin. No matter what side of the politics you're on, and those of you who know me know I'm a leftist center liberal here, the idea of disproportionately or inaccurately or in an imbalanced way applying systems thinking or skepticism is a bad idea. If you have a system or a framework, if you have a type of understanding you want to share with the world, you should either apply it universally, disclose your personal investments in the situation, or shut the hell up. Those are your only options. And again, just to head into our next topic related to this, I think this becomes way important in the era of tech and business that we're in. Let's talk a little about what's going on with Stargate, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, etc. Let me start by saying something about, again, the notion of tech and politics merging. There was a half joke from a VC that I thought was kind of on point with concerns I have about this new phase and new era in the early stage startup ecosystem in particular. Andreessen Horowitz seemed to have changed their logo a couple days ago, and a venture capitalist tweeted, quote, "Can I make fun of the new logo without getting deported?" And I only think that was a half joke. The unfortunate truth, again, of our current market moment is a lot of these people have incentives, are now intertwined with the powers of our three branches. And although the right typically claims that it's the left that tends to get vengeful or spiteful, it's actually typically the opposite, as we've seen in the Altman versus Musk situation we're going to see in a second here. But let's talk about Altman versus Musk, because this is another thing where incentives and being honest about incentives is super important. If you've been paying attention on Tech Twitter, or Tech X, I guess it's now called, the two of them have been tweeting at each other. Musk also spreading a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the Stargate deal. Now he's a very senior White House official, so he's doing it, as a private citizen and business owner, but also has this Trump-adjacent incentive. And then Sam trying to tweet very politely and encouragingly about both Elon and Trump in an attempt to calm Elon down. First of all, for those of you either in left-leaning media or on socials who are attacking Sam for this, let's get real. Sam is probably a Democrat. Sam probably continues to not like Donald Trump. Let him cook. We have to trust certain capitalists in this situation. Empower him to get in their good graces and to do deals like Stargate with Larry Ellison and Massa and Trump, and to be a counterbalance to what else we might not like. It really frustrates me that we don't live in a more pragmatic reality on the Democratic side of the ticket. So please, let the man cook. A lot of people are attacking him and saying, oh, look at him glazing Trump now. Boo, boo, boo. So stupid. It's some people I respect too, so it's really frustrating. Got me mad. You just got mad. But again, think about all the incentives here when you see, for example, Elon tweeting about this. Elon was a founder at OpenAI. There's a whole complicated lawsuit about that. He now has xAI, which is competing with OpenAI. He at some point said we should pause AI progress because he was worried about the probability of doom. There's just so much wrapped into this. He is now very close to Trump, who's obviously the one facilitating this deal. I believe he's also very close to Larry Ellison, who funded a big portion of his Twitter buyout. So Elon likes some of these people, hates one of them in particular, has incentives wrapped into this. Sam obviously has incentives too. I'm not saying he's clean from this, but he's doing a business deal that very clearly lays out his incentives. And this mix and all of the complication here, I don't really have a big judgment on Stargate. Sounds like a cool and fun project. But it just feels messy, and I want people to pay attention as more of these messy conversations happen as to what the incentives are and what ideal outcomes could potentially look like. I don't have more to say on this for now, but I also hope I don't get deported. Speaking of complaints I have about my liberal friends, I just want to cover the Instagram debacle that's been going on over the past 48 hours, people misunderstanding exactly what's happening with who they follow and why. I want to talk about this not just to talk about this particular instance, but this is a recommendation I have to people, friends of mine, whether they're on the right, on the left, whether they're confused or uncertain about anything that's happening to them from a technological perspective or workflow perspective in life. Take a moment and use deductive reasoning, have some understanding of how systems work before you have very strong opinions about them. No one forced anybody to follow Trump after the inauguration. Yes, it's true that Mark Zuckerberg is getting closer to the admin, but no, it's not true that they have any incentive or reason to force that to happen. What's happening is there are certain accounts, the POTUS accounts, the FLOTUS accounts, certain accounts where the current holders of office are the ones who control the page. And so as the inauguration happened, all of Biden's content was archived and Trump takes over those official pages. You were already following those accounts. And if you tried to unfollow them, keep in mind you and hundreds of thousands or millions of other people were trying to unfollow these accounts, spamming the follow and unfollow buttons. And there's technology at play here. There's limitations of what a server can understand, how fast a database is going to update, how fast it's going to show you that it updated the status of your following of a particular account in your front end inside your phone and your app. There's a lot of complication I won't get into as to how that works, other than to say no one was forcing you to follow or stay followed to President Trump in particular. Instead, again, technology was at play there. And when so many people were just so convinced and yelling about it, it was just kind of embarrassing. As someone, again, who's a leftist center liberal, I was embarrassed. I encourage, again, all my friends, but especially my more liberal friends who are going to have to fight to win back trust and offices over the next several years, to just be a little smarter moving forward. So again, just to be clear, and this has happened over the past several admin transitions, the Biden content was put into an archived account that you're probably actually following as well. And if you look at the handle of the Trump account that you feel like you were forced to follow, it is the POTUS account, POTUS, as in the President of the United States. If you need to verify this for yourself, look at the handle of the accounts that you're following. It's going to be something like @POTUS or @VPOTUS for the vice president or FLOTUS for the first lady. And if you tried to investigate yourself for the first time, you might have noticed this before you yelled. All right, on to more tech-oriented business news. Substack, the newsletter platform, launched a $20 million creator accelerator fund, which I think is related to some other announcements and trends that have been happening. So let's tie things together. The $20 million creator fund is interesting because Substack wants to attract more people over, and there are people who might have been considering moving over to Substack, but everyone's afraid of the transition. Everyone's afraid, especially if they're making revenue, of moving platforms, whether it's these particular writers, editors, or people who are moving social media platforms in general. And essentially, Substack is saying if you make a certain amount of revenue on another platform, we'll backstop that amount for you in some sort of an agreement through this fund to guarantee that you're not going to make less as you transition to the platform. Smart move. At the same time, here are two other announcements that I think are related. Netflix has talked about adding more co-op and party games. It's already been adding a lot of mobile games or mobile-like games to its platform. They're planning more games using their IP, so more narrative or single-player games related to Netflix shows. And Instagram, as everything's been going on with TikTok and the related ban and 90-day extension, has been offering creators a bonus system if they decide to post Reels first. All of this, to me, is about how attention is going to become ever more scarce and valuable inside the age of AI. We are at a tremendous amount of uncertainty. If you read a lot of what venture capitalists say or public market investors, a lot of folks don't know about what revenue looks like for different businesses in SaaS and healthcare over the next 5-10 years, because so much is expected to be displaced by AI. But one of the things that I think a lot of people feel is regardless if AI is going to change how content is made or how it can be created, that creators in general or brands in general, IP in general is still going to have lasting value because it can draw people's attention and trust. And so more capital, I think, year on year is going to be spent in this way to drag people into either exclusive agreements or posting agreements where these platforms are trying to get as many eyeballs as humanly possible. And I think these businesses will actually be worth a lot more over time than we might have expected otherwise because of the deflationary effect of AI in every other sector. It'll be interesting, again, to see how AI impacts these creative industries and if that changes things. But I actually, again, don't think it will. Even in a day and age where maybe we do like our AI movies and video games, the ones created by humans or the creators who recommend what games or movies we should play or watch or curate on top, all of that will still be valuable. And again, increasingly valuable because if we do have more time to be watching, we'll watch AI-driven stuff. We'll read both human and AI-written stuff. It's not necessarily zero-sum. I think again, the way to think about this, even if AI disrupts the creative industry, there's still going to be human curators. There's still going to be human creators. We'll have a mix of both human-led and AI-led products and services and content that we consume. And platforms in particular want to drag users to be native, logged in, and experiencing all of these things on their real estate. And related to this, Netflix's market cap is at an all-time high. That's not just about their performance, but it's also, I think, again, a realization of the deflationary effect of AI on other industries. Whereas content, especially in the case of Netflix, that's now doing a lot of reality and sports, is still going to be king and might be an area where AI disruption looks or feels a little bit different. Okay, a few last things to pay attention to as we wrap up here. A lot of you are in the tech industry, listen to a lot of podcasts I know, and are probably fans of the All In Pod. I hate listening to it every single week, have since it started. And I just want to offer a warning because Chamath, Palihapitiya just had an episode with Tucker Carlson. And that will show up in some people's feeds as a recommendation if you're not already, a Tucker subscriber. Full disclosure, I think that person is one of the worst human beings, scum of the earth. Come at me. But the point I want to make is I've listened to this episode already, and I want to warn folks who are fans of the All-In Pod and who might be listening to it, be careful, again, going back to this incentives thing, about stories being retold and repackaged in a certain way. And this is happening throughout tech and throughout the Trump admin, from my point of view. And again, you don't have to be on the left or against the Trump admin to understand what I'm saying here or embrace it. Chamath is repackaging a lot of history as to the things that he's done. And some folks know his history in terms of what he did with SPACs back during the COVID craze, his history in venture capital. And he's now retelling these stories in a very sympathetic way that kind of puts him at the victim side of the table alongside everybody else. So in this interview, he admits in one breath the things that went wrong while also positioning himself as victim to larger macro trends or personality defects in a way that, again, makes him seem sympathetic. I'm not saying that he's actually wrong about some of the nuances. For example, he says that everybody has a dark passenger with them, and he had one that caused him to make some of the negative decisions or have negative consequences from his decisions over time. And that's fair, and that's his story, and he can tell it. But I think at the same time, he's laundering his own story along the way, trying to focus on the emotions of the psychology of it rather than on the facts of exactly what happened and repenting, apologizing, or clarifying those facts. And in this media sphere we're currently in, where the same set of people are going on each other's podcasts and being asked unchallenging questions and not being asked follow-ups, I just encourage you, again, if you're going to listen to this, and if you listen to the All In Pod in general, be very careful in tuning into their incentives at any moment in time when they're trying to sell you some vision of the future or some vision of who they are. I'll leave it at that for now. And just so no one can accuse me of being one-sided to this, let me attack also some liberal folk out in tech. This is someone I followed for a while who tweets pretty consistently about work from home and remote work. For those of you not watching on YouTube, the tweet says, quote, "Just a reminder that most of the CEOs and VCs trashing remote work on Twitter are doing so while working from home or on vacation with hired help in the background off screen. They don't want to get rid of work from home. They just don't want you to have access to it," end quote. Let me be clear to, again, my liberal friends. When you tweet stuff like this, my question to you is, who do you think you're helping? This is not like a substantive or data-driven argument about work from home. This doesn't push forward action items that anyone reading it can take. Instead, it just riles people up. It has some sort of sly agenda. It uses the term they. They are the ones doing it to you. Whenever you hear someone say they, ask a follow-up question. Who the hell is they? What are the incentives of they? Why might they be doing it? Because even if Blair is right, something he won't engage with, because I did reply to him, I did ask him a question, and he has not responded. What is an employee, talent in the world supposed to do about this? If CEOs and VCs do have this opinion, they're the ones that allocate capital and headcount today. That's just the way it is. And so if you just rile people up and tell them that they are holding you back, they are holding you down, they are the reason you can't work from home, an individual candidate or a collection of candidates or a collection of employees, we've seen this with the way the market has shifted, does not have the power to do anything about it. I would even prefer if he had a petition at the end of this tweet, but he doesn't even have a petition. All he's doing is agitating you to the fact that you might not have as much optionality as people who are at the top end of the capital stack. My recommendation to you about that is to either understand sacrifices and decide whether or not you want to take an in-office job or a from-home job, become really good at the game, whatever the game might mean to you in your career so that you can become a boss that makes some of these choices. Understand why, by the way, work from home and remote is actually really bad, and that's something I'll debate anyone on, so feel free to come at me. But I hate people who just rile us up. And if for the sake of balance, I need to say something about my liberal friends to balance what I've said about the tech right today. Liberals are fantastic at riling people up about things that either don't matter, they don't understand, or that we can't actually control. And my content recommendation for the week is a related podcast. I thought it was just a fantastic and highly reflective conversation. It's What Now with Trevor Noah and his interview with Simon Sinek. The episode is called Why Are All Bosses Idiots? It's a really fascinating conversation because it gets into this nuance of the relationship that we have to work. There are three people actually talking in this episode. It's Trevor, it's Simon, and Trevor's employee, Christiana. I might not be saying that right. And the dynamic that plays out is Trevor's employee has some conflicting opinions about what relationship people should have to their work and to their bosses, all while also working for a boss she really loves and on a mission she really loves. And so three of them have this really interesting, intense, deep chat about why we think all of our bosses are idiots, how we can get into mission-aligned work, the agency that certain demographics and people have versus the agency that certain demographics and people lack. I loved listening to this. Highly recommend. We'll put it in the description. That's episode 15 of The Sherveen Show. If you're not already, wherever you're listening or watching, please subscribe, share it with a friend. See you next time.